Noah, you're very welcome.
Why, thank you so much. It's great to be here. It's so nice to talk to you in person.
Most of the people who watch my channel know that I'm fascinated when it comes to having some way of playing that's easier, that allows you to do all the things that you never could do.
Right.
And when you sent me your video of your technique, I was like, oh, we have to talk. We have to talk. So I really want to jump right into it and just tell us what it is and how to do it.
All right. Well, as it turns out, I can just explain it with 2 sentences. That's all it takes. And first I'll start with the name. I call it Strategic Legato Alternate Picking. Psh, slap! Which is an unfortunate name because it makes you think of slap bass and slap guitar, but Strategic Legato Alternate Picking is just the quickest way to describe what it is.
It sounds very expensive.
Yeah. So it's very simple because alternate picking works like this, where you alternate no matter what, and you're always going down on the beat, up off the beat, right? That's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, like that.
Right.
But then what I learned, I spent a whole big part of the pandemic just working on picking and trying to figure out the different approaches to do it, and channels like yours was great. And I learned that there's really just this one thing that messes up alternate picking. And what it is, in a nutshell, is when you finish on a downstroke, wound up, down, your pick then has to sort of hop over the next string to do the next upstroke. And
right.
That's just the exact moment where it all falls apart. So you just have to solve that one problem, and then you're good. So I looked into all these different ways of doing it.
Oh, I'll have some too then. Vodka.
After looking into all the different ways of doing it, they're really hard, right? Like, it's really hard to... Economy picking is probably the most common way to do it, where you go down, up, down, and then another down.
Yep.
But then you have to flip your pick around to come back the other way. It's like... And, that definitely works, and there's people who are great at it, like yourself, but not everybody can do that, right? Like, I don't know too many people who are really great at economy picking.
Yeah.
Then there are ways to do it, alternate picking, with sort of, different motions where you can play at really, really high speeds. But those are also incredibly hard to master, and I would say that of the people that are really good at that, you probably already know their names because they're some of the greatest guitar players that ever lived, So I was kind of just thinking, like, man, if the only problem is this one spot where you finish a string on a downstroke, well, what if I just hammer that on? Down, up, I do a hammer on, and then I keep going like it never happened, and then on the way back, I might have to do some pull-offs going the other way. And so I tried it out, and holy smokes, it worked pretty well. Now I'm a little nervous right now, so I don't know if I'll be able to do it on key. So it's a strategic legato, right? A legato is a hammer-on or a pull-off or a slide. And so you need to figure out where they are. And so I just tried to memorize, like, okay, a C major scale, starting here in the 3rd fret of the A string, and I'm gonna go down, up, down. So right there where the pinky goes on, that would be a problem spot, right? And then I continue on, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Right there on the E note, that's another spot where my pick is kind of in the wrong spot to keep going, up, down, and then I'm finished. So there was really only 2 spots that need to be ironed out. So what I tried to do is, like, okay, I'm gonna hammer on, and I find it works better if I just say slap when the hammer on comes. So check it out. Down, up, slap, up, down, up, slap, up, down. Down, up, slap, up, down, slap, up, down. So let's see how that works. Down, up,
So what you're doing is you're only hammering when your pick is out of position.
That's correct.
So it's different than I call it meter picking, but it's from Josh, but it's
right.
kind of the thing that we got from Schofield.
That's right.
Which was I just pick hammer on every string that had 3 notes.
I have to admit, when I watched your interview with Josh, I was like, I almost spit my drink out at that moment because I thought he was going to describe this thing that I've been working on for 6 months. Because he said it. I try to always finish the string with a hammer on. But then after watching it a little closer, I realized, like, for him to do a 3-note per string thing, not that I can do it the way he does, but he goes down, up, hammer, down. Sorry, I can't even do it. Down, up, hammer, down, up, hammer, down, up, hammer.
Yes.
So that ends up being like every 3rd note would be a hammer on, right?
Right.
I think kind of sounds a little legato once you're doing it that way. And for me, the way I would do a 3-note per string scale with this new idea, the slap technique, is to go down, up, hammer on. So down, up, slap. And then I'm going up, down, up on that one. Down, up, slap, up, down, up, slap, up, down, up. So what that does, I find you don't notice the legatos as much when it's the bare possible minimum, the absolute least amount of you can possibly have, right? In this position of the C major scale, like what you might call the A shape or the 2nd position on the guitar, like I counted it up actually. I forget exactly what the number is, but when you play the whole position up and down and back, it's 31 notes total, but 26 of them end up being picked, and only 5 notes are legato. So it's like those 5 legato notes, once you're going really fast, I find they just don't really register. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And it doesn't even matter if they do register. Like, the alternative to doing that is like learning very, very hard techniques, right? Like stuff that is super elite level playing, right?
It's like pretty much what Troy Grady was talking about, that you're either having to have a downward pick escape or an upward pick escape, all of this stuff that, of course, the greats that you've met, well, you didn't mention names, but the greats that we all know about are doing it naturally.
Yes.
And I think this is a very, very interesting solution that you came up with, because you're kind of you're like avoiding the hardest part of it, the hardest part of alternate picking.
For me, where I'm coming at it from, like, I'm not even really that interested in shred guitar or, certain styles of that kind of music. I'm more just coming at it from the being a guitar teacher and then a lifelong student of guitar. And also it's more just like my goal is I just want to be really good at playing guitar. I'm not really trying to, learn a certain specific bag of licks and tricks, right? And so I found some of those ways of just doing one way escape picking, for example, or even economy picking in one direction. All the different ways that people talk about. I found it a little bit frustrating because I'm not really interested in learning all the certain licks or whatever. I just want to have an easy way to play whatever I want to play. And as a professional guitar player, I don't want to be afraid of anything or have any worries that I wouldn't be able to play something. And this just to me seemed like the easiest possible solution, right? To just not do that one thing that trips you up. And I didn't know that it would sound the way that it does, right? Like, I thought it would just help me out in a couple scenarios, but as it turned out, it actually sounds pretty much like it's really hard to tell the difference between when you're slap picking or when you're just regular alternate picking.
So if somebody themselves are trying to figure this out, do they have to go and find it? Let's say we're just using a C major scale, for example. If you're doing the C major scale, starting on the 8th fret, the traditional one that starts with the 2nd finger, do they have to basically stay down, up, and then wherever they have where their pick needs to go around the string, that's where they're doing the slap.
Yeah, and you always know where it is because it's whenever you finish on a downstroke in either direction. So we're in that exact, starting on the 8th fret, middle finger.
Yes.
First string is easy, down, up, and then I'm going to go down, up, down. On that G note, that was a downstroke, right? So that would be one that I'm going to try to remember to hammer on.
Okay.
So I'm going to go down, up, slap, up, down, up. And then we're so far we're good, but here comes another one, down, up, right here, boom. That one would be a downstroke if I was alternate picking, and that's going to be a problem spot. So I'm going to, the F note with my pinky, I'm going to hammer that one on too. And then so that was down, up, slap, up, down, slap, up, down. Two, it's only...
And your right hand keeps that down up motion.
Yeah, that's crucial. And I mentioned this in my video, but I've showed this to a couple friends, and the thing that they often do is they go down, up, and they do the hammer on, but your pick still has to go down while you're hammering on to preserve the alternate picking motion. And that's the key to the whole thing. So it goes down, up, and I'm going down, but notice that I'm hammering on, but the pick just misses the strings, but that allows me to go up, up on the next one, and then down, up, and then here it happens again. Little stroke there, by down, up, slap, up, down, slap, up, down, right? And it works either direction too. So coming the other way, it would down, up, slap, up, down, slap, up, down. And I'll be honest, when I first was learning this, or practicing it, of course I had no idea it was going to work, but I had a hunch it might. But I just straight up memorized which notes to hammer on and pull off. Just straight up memorized it. I even wrote it out on in notation, and I just was like, okay, right there, and it was just memorization. It wasn't anything really poetic or anything. What I realized was after I worked through all 5 positions of the scale, I found no matter what the scale is, my fingers just know how to do it now, and it just happens supernaturally, and the weird thing is I think I've been doing this for years and not realizing it.
Oh.
There's certain licks that just I always would get lucky on, you know what I mean? Like this classic 2-5-1 lick that everybody knows. I remember learning it from Lenny Bro or someone, but it's like that one. I would always just get lucky because I would go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And I would just hammer that on for I don't know why, it just felt right.
How does somebody approach learning a lick like that using the slap system?
Step 1 is be able to alternate pick on the scale. And it's weird to think, I never would have guessed it, but after studying a bunch of Troy's material, like the major scale is actually one of the hardest things to pick, and so it's actually the perfect thing to work on. And it's because it has a combination of even and odd numbers of notes per string, that especially when you play it in cage positions as like I do, that very much becomes one of the hardest things to pick. And so it's actually a really good thing to work on. So what I would do is once you can, very fluidly and relaxed play through all 5 positions of the major scale, then you got to go through one at a time. And I would start with just 1 octave and just work on this. Down, up, slap, up, down, up, slap, up, down. And just let that take. You know what I mean? And then once you can do that, then try the whole position. So that would be down, up, slap, up, slap, up, slap, slap, slap. So there's like, 5 of them in there. And then it just feels really good. And then I was just going to say, so work on that for a while. That's sort of a good way to get in the gate. And it's always good to practice your major scales anyways. And then just start to think in terms of, when you learn a new lick and if it's a fast lick, you just start to analyze it a little bit of like, what can I do? You know, am I finishing on a downstroke? What I mean is if whatever the lick is, if the last note on that string is a downstroke, you're going to want to hammer that one on or pull it off. That's all there is to it. Oh yeah, remember I said it's just 2 sentences, right? You go down on the beat, up off the beat, and if the last note on a string ends in a downstroke, apply a strategic legato. That's the 2 sentences that describes this whole thing.
And the next pick is an up pick.
It has to be, yeah. And
Yes.
but that kind of that's rule number 1, right? Down on the beat, up off the beat, right? If you're doing 8th notes, that is down, up, slap, up, down, up. Yeah. And yeah, it feels pretty good. Now, I'm sure people might want to know that depending on your pick angle, this might not work as well for you. And that's because there's a, you know, with this pick angle that I play with, my pick is sort of free after an upstroke. See that?
Yeah. So an upwards escape if we're using Troy's.
Escape, exactly. If you're a downwards escape player, in theory this could work, but you would have to do everything in reverse, which means when you finish on a string on an upstroke, then you have. Did I say that right? I don't know, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you'd finish. Be finishing with an upstroke, and you do the hammer there, and then you come in on a downstroke.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So in a sense, you solve the upward escape, right? Am I saying that right? The upward escape.
Upward escape.
Yeah. In other words, you can keep that attitude all the way up and down the scale.
And the other thing is cool is like, you know, I've been learning a bunch of George Benson licks and stuff lately, and he does so much. It's all upward escape, right? And so you can still play upward escape licks, and you can still play any Yngwie licks or Django Reinhardt licks. And then, but all this does is it adds one more little bit to help you through a jam. And I feel like people know this, but if there's anything new about this technique, it's just that the idea that you can do it all the time. You can train yourself to always fix that problem no matter what. And the truth is it doesn't actually happen as often as you'd think. It's kind of like, I don't know what the exact percentage would be, but it's, you know, it's a small percentage of notes that you end up needing to hammer on or pull off. And so it doesn't have that legato playing sound.
And what happens with arpeggios?
Yeah, arpeggios are not going to, this can't really help you, because if you have one note on a string, there's no opportunity for the slap to help you, right? Because, you know what I mean? Like, so arpeggio playing, it's not going to help you with that. You'll either have to do what people have always been doing, which is, you know, cross picking or double escape playing or sweeping or something like that. And I've been kind of just on the lookout for, you know, guitar players who are really amazing at alternate picking. I really love Leon Rhodes, who's a great country guitar player from the 50s and 60s. And so I learned one of his solos, and it was, again, like, it was faster than my wildest dreams. Like, I would never think of tackling a solo like this before, because it's just blisteringly fast. You can watch it on YouTube. It's called Honey Fingers, and he does a great live version of it. But you know, like so I learned this riff. This is one of the licks of many in his solo. Okay, so here it is. Watch. Oh, there's one there too. And here, so just those two. All right, and that's about how fast he plays it. You know, he's playing at, I don't know, 330 beats per minute or more, 340. Because when I alternate pick that lick, it's not there. I can go this fast. You know, so alternate picking will work perfectly up to a certain speed, and it's probably different for different people. But there is this kind of cutoff point unless you're a genius, right? Of which,
yeah.
you know, like if you can already do this, then you don't need my technique, right? But this is more just for regular human beings who, you know.
Us mortals.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so that one like is a good example. It's really helpful to see the chord and then have those notes underneath the chord that you're used to seeing. You know.
Right, and that is the caged perspective.
That's right.
That is, and that, I guess, if you've learned, not that there's anything wrong with it. I didn't learn it that way.
Yeah.
I didn't learn improvising that way.
Yeah.
But I know that people who are coming from that school, that's their bread and butter.
Well, I could talk for a whole other hour about what I like about caged, and because really, I learned the stretchy fingerings first from my first teacher, and I played that way for years, but I just wasn't happy with my improvising. But when you think about it, like, there's something about having the root here and the major seventh way over here spatially, you know what I mean? As opposed to, it's just nice to know that the major seventh is always right behind the root. That's where I know it will always be. You know what I mean? And so I just found when I switched to thinking of things that way, like, you know, the major third is always down and to the left, just like a G chord, you know, and a fifth is always like a power chord, and a sixth is kind of weird, it's over there, but then the seventh is always right behind the octave, and I know where the octave is. And so I started thinking of things in that way, and then I was all of a sudden hearing the intervals and singing them in my head and playing them in more the way that I wanted to. And for the kind of music that I play, which is more, you know, I really love music from the 50s and stuff like that. So for the kind of music that I play, it works great. But I also don't play a lot of fusion or metal or anything like that. So I think those stretchy ones are really good for other styles of music. But
I think that I use certain parts of the caged phenomena.
Yeah.
When I first started learning how to improvise over a minor 7 chord,
Yeah.
I see that figure. I still to this day see that, even though I know the stretch things and I know things that would be like way more outlandish and harder to do.
Yeah.
I always see that box.
Yeah.
And I think that that's right out of the cage system.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Well, for me, like, I learned originally, I don't know if they come from Berkeley or wherever, but my teacher taught me 7 positions of the major scale, right?
Yep.
Each one starting on a different, your first finger on a different note of the scale. And that there's a real logic to that, right? Because it's so thorough. And then I sort of learned the 5 positions of caged, and now I've got it boiled down to 2 positions, right? Which is like from here up to here, and then there up to there. And so it's like, for me, I'm looking for something and I've got 2 buckets to search through versus 7, that to me is a much easier task. You know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes there's too many choices. It's like Netflix or something, you know? But thinking of it like the first octave of this scale, this is G major, everything's right where I need it to be. There's a third, there's a fifth, there's a seventh. And then when I play it here, it's exactly the same. When I play it here, I have to do the shift. It's the same, but it's the same. And then you do the same thing in this octave. And whatever I play here, I can play here. And it feels identical. And all the intervals are exactly where I would want them to be. And so to me, I noticed in my own playing, it just got way better once I started thinking of things in this way. So for me, that's why maybe to relate it back to the slap idea, it's like I'm kind of all in on these 5 positions, the caged positions, just because they work so well for the kind of music that I want to play. And then I'm super into alternate picking too, because for one, I've been doing it my whole life, but also like, you know, I think alternate picking is rhythmically has a lot of benefits, right? Because you would never play a funk tune like, you know, you would go, right? And it need to play anything funky, you have to have that down and up pendulum going.
Yeah.
And that translates to single notes as well. You know, whether it's or anything kind of funky, right?
Yeah.
So to me, this bounce is crucial, and so I guess it just worked. I was able to break through to a higher playing level and higher speed level, but I didn't have to throw away everything that I've developed throughout my whole life. And I imagine there's probably lots of guitar players out there who are in the same boat. And so I think this would work especially well for people like that, people who are in the same boat as me.
When you say that you're interested in music from the 50s, can you name a few artists so we could kind of...
Yeah, well, of course, I'm into lots of things, but I'm just really enamored in the last 4 or 5 years, like with kind of some of the legends of in the kind of Nashville system. So Hank Garland and Grady Martin. And then there's this wild country player named Joe Maphis who plays blisteringly fast solos. And that's actually what inspired me to get this guitar, because he plays a double neck version of this, but anyways, like so he just plays these blisteringly fast, and yeah, you can watch some great footage of him on YouTube, all in black and white. And it's funny, Joe Maphis is an alternate picker, and he's one of the fastest I've ever heard. But much to my surprise, when I transcribed a bunch of his stuff, I realized that everything he plays is even numbers of notes per string. And I would think that's impossible, right? Like, how is it that he did that? But somehow he just instinctively went to this even numbers of notes per string thing, and then he never had that picking problem. And I've transcribed like tons of his stuff, and I've never seen him do anything but even numbers of notes per string.
Wow.
And so check out his stuff, and like if you want to learn any of his stuff, it sounds impossible to play because it's so ridiculously fast. But if you have the right pick angle, there's no way I'm going to be able to play it right now. You can just cut to a clip.
Okay.
But so curious, did he know that he was playing even numbers of notes per string, or did he just instinctively do that? But it's plain as day. Once you start to transcribe his stuff, it's right there.
Fascinating. Well, you know what? No, I really appreciate you sharing this with us, and I really hope that this gets that this helps a lot of people over whatever particular hump that they might be humped on. You know, because I remember that one, you know, for myself, when I was struggling with technique, there was nobody really knew enough to be able to guide me. And I burnt
That's
through
right.
a lot of time just not being able to do it, and hearing people around me that were just really great technicians, which is how I ended up playing with a thumb pick. Well, Noam, thanks a million. I really appreciate you hanging out and explaining this, and I really hope that this helps a lot of people.
Me as well. And man, I can't believe I got to talk to you. This is so cool.
Hey, we'll talk some more as soon as we turn this off. Man, take care, and thanks again, all right?